Marco,
Sean.
what's it mean when when you try to mix AI and software development together?
I don't know. A black box.
Copilot. So they're already doing that, right?
Exactly. Well, to be honest with you, I'm going to take a wild guess that there's probably something on a plane that was generated by a machine that the plane uses to get us from A to B, which we'll be taking when we get to London, right? We're both flying to London for info security.
Are you trying to scare me to fly now?
I am. No, I think it depends on how you think about it, right? Humans create errors. Machines maybe can check themselves and not create as many errors.
Yeah.
But then there's always the humans created the data that the machine is using to. So I don't know. It's this infinite circle of.
But that's what it comes down to, isn't it? So much of AI stuff.
Exactly.
And you've seen the disaster of some of the AIs they've put on the internet and said go learn, and they've become very bad very quickly because there's so much rubbish on the internet. So the data set you train with is always critical.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, for people wondering what the heck this is about, this is our pre-event coverage, chats on the road to Info Security Europe in London.
Woohoo!
We're just about a month away as we record this, and as you know, for when Marco and I cover on location, we try to find the coolest people with the coolest topics, and today that's Kevin Fielder, and we're going to be talking about AI, if you hadn't guessed, of course, and DevSecOps. So are we building the code the right way and using technology to help us achieve the best outcomes, or are we getting lazy and letting it do it for us without any checks and balances in place? We're going to find out. Kevin, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. It's going to be good to see you in London again. They're keeping you busy. You have 2 sessions, it seems, which we'll get into.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really good year this year. So looking forward to obviously doing some talks, but also learning and networking and all the other good things.
And I think the conference is growing tremendously. A lot more going on this year. A lot more folks joining too, I think. So, Kevin, it's been a day or two since you've been on. I think you've changed roles and looking at things differently. Maybe perhaps since the last time we spoke. So, what are you up to? Give our audience a little bit about who Kevin Fielder is.
Yeah, so I'm currently CISO for NatWest Boxed and Metal. So we're kind of a little spin-off that's part of NatWest, but like quite a few banks did when they wanted to do kind of DevOps, cloud-based banking, they sort of spun off a little unit on the side rather than try and do it from within the huge machine of the main bank. So Mettle was created in about 2017, and that's a banking app for small businesses. So think like a Monzo or Starling, but aimed purely at small businesses with lots of kind of add-ons like accounting and other things to help you run your small business. And obviously to do that, we built a banking platform in the cloud. So we have a pretty much entire banking platform in AWS, which is obviously available on the internet via APIs and whatnot. And that then enables us to do the next thing, which is boxed, so NatWest in a box. And that is offering banking services to non-banking businesses. So you can then natively offer buy now, pay later, savings, loans, whatever else, but from within your site or app, powered by us, but much more kind of still within your ecosystem. So the easiest example, I think, is obviously the buy now, pay later thing. If you're a retailer, a customer will log into your site, browse around, you see what they're doing, you have a relationship with them, they'll maybe ask questions, order things, whatever else. Then they check out and they have a relationship with someone else for 3 to 6 months while they pay for their goods. If you can natively offer that within your site or app, or even in physical things, you've probably seen like Klarna ads in shops recently as well, right? But then you maintain that relationship. So we'll do the KYC, we'll do all the kind of like the things to make sure people can afford it, and the money side of it. But it's kind of within your site and within your ecosystem. So you maintain that relationship with your customers, and I think it's a really big thing for a lot of businesses that want to be able to do banking services, whether it's savings, loans, pensions, buy now, pay later, save now, buy later, which is I guess a more ethical way of doing the same thing because you save first, all those kind of things, and we can power that for you. So there's going to be huge growth and a big change for us from being effectively a B2C, although Metals for small businesses, because they're so small, it's effectively business to consumer. They'll open up a bank account like any normal consumer. Now we're going to sell these capabilities to large businesses. So we're moving from B2C to B2B, or B2B to C effectively, because we have a relationship with a client who has a lot of customers. So it's going to be huge growth for us, and it's big changes in how we work as well. So it's really exciting times. And we had a moment recently when we're kind of getting close to signing some of our first contracts and things. I realized how excited I was, because I'm not usually that invested in the companies I work for, but this is like, because we've kind of built this, and over the last year I've kind of seen the banking as a service proposition come to fruition and become a real thing. It's actually really exciting getting to that moment when we're soon going to have an actual customers and actually do it in a marketplace and prove it works, rather than it just being something we've built. So yeah, it's really exciting times, and I guess watch this space for sort of big news of sort of growth from Boxed.
So banking as a service, real quick, Marco, I can't get this out of my head, so I have to say it. Banking as a service, bass.
Yeah.
Bass fishing. That's all I'm thinking.
I've got that fish on the wall now. The old fish that used to sing.
That's right. The talking trout or whatever it was.
Maybe you should think about it as embedded finance.
So you think bass, you think about fishing. I think bass, I think about bass. So I'm thinking about playing it.
Guitar, yeah.
It's a little bit different. No, but where I was going with this is your excitement and how much is driven by AI. Having excitement driven by AI.
AI is interesting. I think it is genuinely exciting because the amount of things that can happen. I think AI is, but it's also genuinely scary as well, right? About what's going to happen. And I think obviously there's everything from small things to using it to help create better help pages and NLP, better responses to questions, and things like GitHub Copilot and stuff that are effectively just kind of helping you do stuff. And that's quite simple and not so scary. But then when you look at some of the stuff that's kind of the big things, and whether it's the battlefield stuff or whatever else, AI and the potential future of it is it could be utopia or it could be disaster, right? And we're at that point where there's going to be massive shifts in how we work, how we live, driven by the ability of AI to do so many things for us, especially when you look at I don't know if you guys have seen the most recent Boston Dynamics stuff with their new robot and things as well, right? So you combine these super capable robots and I don't know if it's intelligent is the right word, but intelligent AI stuff together, and you've suddenly got things that can just go and do everything. So it's I'm an optimist, but I think it could go either way, right? And that's the interesting thing. And I think one thing that's a bit scary about all of it is because no one wants to lose, right? So whether it's at the nation state level, China and America vying for who's going to be best at AI, or just at the business level, there's certain things where you might suggest being slightly more cautious and taking our time and make sure we train it properly and understand how it's going to evolve, and everything else is more sensible. But if your competitor is running full steam ahead to go really fast and get there first, you have to do it as well, or you'll lose. So there's this kind of thing where I think we would, as a species, as nations, whatever, be wise to be cautious and take our time with making sure we get the utopian AI outcome, not the disaster AI outcome. But no one's willing to take that step back and take the time because your competitors or the other nation is not doing that. So we're all rushing headlong into this thing, knowing we should probably take our time, but no one can take their time because you can't lose. Well, no one wants to lose, right? So it's a really, I think it's from the existential kind of thinking piece, it's really, really interesting, because it's we know what we should do, but how many countries would take a step back and go, we are going to go slowly and let some other country get there first, right?
I'm gonna let the bots, physical and software, battle away, and I'm gonna go sailing and diving.
That would be amazing. But that's the utopia, right? When they do all of their stuff for us, and we can be artists and philosophers and whatever else, because we don't have to do all of the jobs we do now. And there's everyone is comfortably off, and everyone has food, and it's all great, right? And that would be amazing if we get to that. It's just if we do or not.
Yeah. So let's talk about your role as a CISO in that regard, because until it's built, we're in the process of building it. Hopefully we're building it secure by design. Hopefully we're building it so it can be monitored and audited and managed safely and securely, not just for yourself, but clearly in your case for customers and then their customers as well. So there's a chain of events that can happen here. So a lot of organizations buy software and use it to run their business. You're actually building, you probably do that too, right? To run your business, but you're actually building software that becomes part of your business. How are you looking at the development life cycle such that you are building security in from the beginning? How are you building the products to ensure that your own operations of that and the operations of your customers are maintained securely? I presume you're touching on some of this in your talks at InfoSecurity in London as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm lucky enough I'm doing 2 talks, and luckily I've moved so they're both on the same day, which is convenient. But yes, I'm doing one with a company called Sneak, who do software development security around safe use of AI, and then one that afternoon around DevSecOps. So I mean, a lot of the security principles are the same as anything else, right? It's just kind of adapting them to AI. So, instead of kind of SQL injections and that kind of thing, you're looking at prompt injection attacks, right? So it's a different type of attack, but it's still fundamentally putting things into it to make it do things it shouldn't do. But it gets more interesting because it's how does it respond? So yeah, sort of obviously you've got a whole range of things. There's use of other people's AI, and it's things like making sure your IP doesn't get into it, especially if it could then give it to someone else. So whilst in some ways you could think about that as being the same as like traditional DLP and things in terms of not wanting to get certain data out there, the difference is obviously if you do put it into a form on a website somewhere, it probably doesn't end up becoming part of the answer to someone else. So there is kind of a slightly different kind of risk posture, or I don't know the right terminology, or slightly different risks associated with your data potentially getting into an LLM, because then it can give that data to someone else. So kind of if you're using a off-the-shelf third-party kind of service, it's getting yourself comfortable that it's not going to take your data into the LLM if that's not what you want, or having your own instance of an LLM so that your data is safe in your own instance. And obviously there's it's security adjacent stuff. So there's a lot of things become safety, right? So whether it's a third party one or your own one, are the outputs safe and correct, and can you demonstrate how they got there? And some of that's not necessarily traditional security, but it's obviously safe. It comes into the kind of safe use thing. So whether that's going to sit in security as we move forwards, or I think I saw a thing the other day about CAIO, Chief AI Officer, becoming a role that may or may not exist. But yeah, is there going to be people dedicated to how we use AI, right? Because at the moment, obviously, you've got privacy people and security people, and people in terms of, say, even financial services, you've got to make sure you can evidence how it got to a decision. So if you start doing AIs and making decisions that impact people, you have to be able to evidence, certainly in the UK, that the decision is the best decision for that person. And obviously, if you've made a decision as a human, you've gone down a bunch of checks and whatever else, you can easily evidence, we checked all these things, we did these sums, here's the output. Whereas when the AI just goes, oh, you should do this, and it's a black box, how do you build in the evidence? So I think building into AIs how they do things so they can tell you how they've come to an answer was going to become increasingly important, so we understand how a decision was made. So whether it's right or wrong, we know how it got there and we can evidence how it got there. Obviously, when it's building it yourself, you've got all of those kind of things, and then obviously you've got the attack side of things as well. So making sure you understand how people can poison AI and how they can do interesting prompts and things. Yeah, I think I'm sure they've rolled on from that, but the really simple examples, you'll probably remember when ChatGPT was in its early days of everyone using it, you could ask it how to do a murder, and then they were like, well, you probably shouldn't answer that, so they stopped answering that. So you just said, I'm writing a book on writing a thriller, and the murderer does this. How would I go about writing about this murder? And so that's the kind of things as well, where it's not necessarily poisoning, but kind of you can make them give answers they shouldn't by kind of working around how to get the answer out of them. So it's kind of social engineering the AI, right? So yeah, there's a huge amount of, I'm probably rambling a bit because it's such a big topic, right? But it's everything from how to build it safely, how to understand the answers, how to understand where your data is, how to understand attacks against it, and all of those things. And obviously, because it's a newish space for a lot of companies, there's going to be understanding who's accountable for which bits, right? To make sure things don't fall through the cracks. So with traditional software, we'll do all the good stuff, code scanning, third-party library scanning, some sort of DAST automated scanning of a test environment, four eyes checks on the code possibly as well, and then kind of pen testing or something. Then you've got kind of quite a well understood SDLC and threat modeling and secure by design at the start, and we kind of have that fairly well understood. It's done less and better in different places, but we understand what that should look like, and there's some really good SDLCs out there, or SDLC kind of designs out there, but we need the same for AI, right? And then you've got a whole load of new tools. So you've got one of the things I'm thinking about at the moment is how we secure things like Jupyter notebooks that access your data lake and do. So you've got people working on ML and all your data, and they've got whole new tools for doing that. And so it's not like, hey, throw this on your container or throw, MDR and DLP on your laptop or whatever. It's a new thing, and you can't run existing tools on it, and existing pipeline things don't scan them yet because they're new. So how do we scan them? So there's a new set of kind of tools and processes to understand, I think. So there'll be kind of AI SDLC or something that we need to kind of standardize and understand. I'll stop there, so I'll keep rambling.
So before Sean gets heavy,
I want you to keep going, but Marco has something.
No, because this is one of those conversations that it can go forever.
Yeah,
and you cannot reconnect. So I'm envisioning this chief AI officer, and I'm wondering, is this person a psychologist, a sociologist, a engineer, a computer science? Because we go back to what you said at the beginning. It could go very well, it could go very wrong. We should all be excited, but with caution. But then if we don't do things, somebody else is going to do it. So again, this hat is a ethical hat, or is it secure in technology hat, or do we need,
No, it's a fast to market hat.
Well,
we need all of these.
well, then this fast to market, you have the technology hat. The ethical is probably going to tell you, no, dude, this is not going to go well.
It feels like that those things are all things. Kind of, if you look at it now, when you're building something, you've got kind of product people wanting to be fast to market, you've got secure people wanting to help make sure it's secure, you've got privacy people wanting to make sure you've got privacy by design, and you're protecting people's privacy and everything else, right? So it's that, even if there is a chief AI officer or whatever, there's going to be a combination of people. You need to make sure you've got that balance, right, of how do we get there fast, but how do we get there fast and safely? And that's always that kind of. And I think that can be a healthy tension, right? There's always a healthy friction of how do we, and it's where you find your balance. And every organization has a risk appetite. People pretend they don't, and they're like, I think I did work in one company where they had a statement around having no appetite for a risk or no tolerance of risk, and it's like, but that's clearly untrue, because everyone has some appetite for taking some risk. And it's not just a security risk, right? It's like taking a big bet, going into a new market. You might spend millions to launch in a new market. That's a huge financial risk, right? So companies all take some risk, and it's just making sure we try to get to that point where the speed to market and the safety are in fair balance. I think one thing as well is bucketing it into different buckets. So kind of the way to be able to move quickly and safely in the main is to look at what you're trying to achieve with the AI and what it will do, and then start doing kind of, it's as simple as low, medium, high risk, right? So something like GitHub Copilot, for me, that's super low risk, because my wife's an engineer, and I joke that half her job is just downloading sort of code snippets of Stack Overflow or whatever, right? So unless you block the internet from your devs, they're going to be downloading code that is untrusted and putting it into your apps, right? And then you're going to have all the things we spoke about, forward checks and all the SDLC stuff and scanning and testing to make sure it's safe. So something like that, where it's just an AI giving code chunks to developers, that as long as you've got a good process for making sure the code is safe, that's no more dangerous than what they do now. So boom, go for your life. Make sure you're comfortable it's not going to steal your data, and that it's not putting any of your stuff into the LLM and whatever else, right? But just go. Then you'll have kind of some medium stuff where it might be customer facing, but it's very low risk. So it's probably things like improving customer help, which is probably more like natural language processing and some ML rather than AI, but it'll be called AI by the vendor, right? That's customer facing, but it's pretty low risk. It's just giving them help page stuff, which they'll end up talking to an agent if they don't get the answer they want, right? So that's fairly low risk. And then you'll have the higher risk. Obviously, I'm talking financial services, that's where I'm currently. Something that makes financial decisioning, obviously, that's super high risk in our world, because you could lose your house or whatever else, right? So then go really slowly and carefully here, because this impacts lives. So anything where you can impact people's lives, or privacy or healthcare or whatever else, let's be cautious and safe. But things where they're just going to make us faster and better, and there is very low risk from using them, let's move quickly. And if we can get good at bucketing things quickly, you can enable organizations to get low risk benefits very quickly, whilst we also manage the risk of kind of higher risk things where kind of life and limb and whatever else could be in danger.
Sounds like a little bit of the AI Act, right? Like high risk, low risk, medium risk.
Yeah, like that kind of thing. And it's sort of thing where we should, again, I think companies should get good at this, because the worse we are at it, the stronger the regulation will be. If bad things happen, you'll get stronger regulation, and there'll be someone, take my, obviously we're not doing anything in that space yet, but someone loses a house or gets, something happens and it gets in the press, and it only has to be 1 or 2 examples, and this was caused by AI, and suddenly someone in government will come down with some terrible regulation to try and prevent it from happening again, that will make it really hard to do things well. So by industry leading on doing it safely and well, we get to help make sure the regulation is better rather than just knee-jerk, I think.
So let me ask you this. For years, I was a quality assurance engineer, and we did white box, black box tests. We used user stories. We did functional tests, and we had to document how things were supposed to work, so we could validate they did, and then we identified the areas where they didn't work. User stories was about the user experience using the application. It seems, and I haven't done this for a long time, so I'm curious your perspective on this. It seems that understanding what's right or what's correct is really hard to kind of capture, especially when you start adding the scalability and the broadness that AI can bring to the picture. How do you document this is what it's supposed to do? If it strays from this, we're in trouble. And then when we talk about user stories, a lot of this stuff is machine to machine now. So there is an actual person sitting, hitting the keyboard and getting the display back. Some of this is machine to machine doing all this stuff. So how do you look at the complexity of that as you're building these things to say we're in good shape, or this is something we need to pay attention to here?
I think if I had the full answer to that, I think I'd be a lot more well off than I am. It's a huge question, right? It's really hard, and I think it wasn't some examples when AIs have talked to each other and started coming up with their own language and everything else, right? So understanding what they're doing is going to be increasingly more and more difficult. The more complex they are, and the more they interact with each other and start influencing each other, us understanding it is going to get more and more difficult. So I don't have an answer other than I think it's really important, and you need to kind of build into the AIs you're building ways of us understanding, or it being able to tell us how it got to an answer. But I think wasn't there a thing where they did it? I can't remember what the test was. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that they did a thing where the AI was supposed to tell her how it got to an answer. I think it was a test of kind of court cases, or would it get someone innocent or guilty, and it learned to give the right answer. So it would give a verdict of guilty or innocent, whatever else, and then it would give an answer that it knew we wanted to hear about how it got to that solution. So it learned to not tell us how it got to the answer, but to tell us what we wanted to hear about how it got to the answer. So by giving away you're happy with a response, it learns that response works and will just give you that response. So even when you tell it to tell you how it got there, it can learn to give you the right answer. I guess like a little kid with, yes, I've done my homework, can I watch telly now or whatever, right? Or whatever else, right? So they can learn, and that's really scary because we've told it to tell us how it got there, and it will tell us what we want to hear. So I think that's going to be a really interesting space. And again, I'm not going to pretend I can answer it, but it's going to be very, very difficult as they get better and better at what they do for us to genuinely understand how they get to their outputs.
There was actually another case where it was pretending to be less smart than what it actually is.
Pretending to be me.
Yeah, pretty much.
But so if they're already learning to deceive and stuff now, and they're comparatively, they're very good at some things, but they're still comparatively simple compared to where they're going to be in a months and years time, right?
Yeah, I think that the biggest fear is that to play with our mind. That's the thing, I think. So that's a utopian. So.
This may be a philosophical engineering question then. As a product manager, you kind of set the stage for here's what we want this to do and here's the scope for what we're about to build. Should we kind of frame the scope of and contain what's possible so that we know we're achieving what we wanted to and not letting it run wild and do other things? So if you're about giving a loan for a car, prevent it from giving loans where they could buy a house. This is a stupid example, but hopefully it makes my point. So in the requirements and then in the development, define what that world looks like and don't let the AI run wild, I guess. Is that something we should look at, or do we want to let it run wild and see what we end up with and see what happens?
So I think there's a problem with that works for narrow use cases, right?
Right.
Everyone's trying to build more general AI that can do a lot of things. So yes, if you've got something that its only job is to look at your financial situation and go, yes, you're an A1, or I don't even know how they classify people now, but or you've got a score on whoever scores it of something 900 and something rather than 200 and something, right? Then yeah, it can probably do quite a good job of doing that really quickly and looking at other factors and trying to get what's going in and out of your bank account, if it's allowed access to that and whatever else, to understand if you can afford it. But that's a very narrow use case. It doesn't really get us the benefits of kind of Gen AI, and obviously people are trying to get to the general purpose kind of AI that's awesome at everything, and that's when it gets, you can't contain it like that, right? Because it's got to do lots of things. And I think to touch on the scary stuff, it's over a year old now, so I always wonder, you know when there's you see stuff about what's really cool, like the Boston Dynamics stuff, or what Palantir are up to, or whatever else, if you're kind of at all worried about people doing things that kind of way more, I think the stuff you see that they release probably isn't anywhere near where they're at now, right? Because they're not going to be releasing here's the stuff that we give, Palantir, for example. I think they're not going to be showing you what they're actually doing with the NSA and people. They're going to reveal a little thing. And it's a year or so ago now, if you Google it, Battlefield AI, and it's basically, it will look at satellite images and everything else, and it will work out where the enemy is likely to be. It will work out what ordnance they have and what weapons they've got and what tanks there are on the field and that kind of thing. And then tell you'll pick something and it will tell you what you should use to destroy it, give you options. And then the only reason it doesn't just do it is because they've coded in, you've got to have a human decide what to do. But just take that step out and suddenly it's running it for you, and it's destroying stuff on the battlefield for you. So it's already there that it can do this stuff. It's only because we've programmed in you're not allowed to, and there's got to be humans and fail safes. So at some point someone will mess that up, right? And then it will just be doing what it wants. So yeah, but and so I always think with all these things, even, and like there's going to be stuff that's way ahead of what we've seen, because they don't show us all the secret stuff, right? So yeah, and that's the scary stuff. It's when it's going out to do very general AI things, or battlefield based AI stuff, not the use case of should someone have a loan or not, because that's a very narrow case that you could probably do now with just as well with ML, right? Dramatic pause.
No, I'm looking at the clock, and I'm like,
we could talk a long time.
We can talk a long time, and what we want to do now instead is to end with the presentation of your trucks at InfoSecurity.
Yeah,
and,
so there are two of them.
Then maybe we'll grab you there and we sit down and we have another conversation.
That would be fun.
Right?
That would be fun.
I'd love to. It'd be really good, because we might get some good, I think we'll get some good, hopefully good audience interaction as well, right? So for me, I don't hate, because I enjoy talking, but I'm not a big fan of the talk at the audience kind of presentation. I'm much keener when it's a discussion, and it's, what are you concerned about? Ask us questions, because I'd rather even if it goes a bit off a tangent, it wasn't what you thought you'd originally talk about. You're talking about what the audience wants to know then, rather than you just telling them, here's the stuff I want to tell you. And it's I'm a huge fan of audience interaction and getting interrupted and people asking questions. So hopefully we'll have a fair chunk of interaction and debate, and then obviously we can talk about that afterwards.
Yeah. That'd be fantastic. So the two sessions, both on Tuesday, the 4th of June, AI fitness, AI wellness, NatWest Boxed and Metal, CISO's thoughts on safe AI use. So you're going to dig into that a little more. That's at 10:30 local time. And then later that afternoon at 2 local, it's deploying an effective DevSecOps team. What's the recipe for success? I believe that's a panel that
a TLDR, that one on you. It's much more about people and process than it is about tools, but we can talk about that on the day.
Perfect. So clearly lots of fun stuff to think about, talk about, take action on, and encourage everybody to catch both of those sessions with you, Kevin, and the others that are joining you. And yeah, hopefully we can have a chat after And
Yeah, grab me. Very happy.
hear what other people are thinking on this topic as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys. Look forward to it.
Good to see you. And
Yep, good to see
looking
you.
forward to see you in London.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for watching this Chats on the Road to Info Security Europe in London. We're just getting started. We have a few episodes published already. Lots more coming up with keynotes and speakers and panelists and other cool people like Kevin. And so we'll see you all there. So please stay tuned. ITSP Magazine on location with Sean and Marco.